Hello, and welcome to your South King County real estate update. Today is April 2nd, and I want to thank you for joining me. I do these each week at 3 p.m. Screen a little adjusted. There we go. So thank you so much for joining me. And I have a number of things to cover today, so I'll go ahead and jump right on into it. All right. So, as I said before, it is April 2nd, and this is your South King County real estate update. My name is Sarah Eggleston, and I'm with Stone Egg Realty at John L. Scott. And I'll go ahead and jump into this. First of all, I want to thank everybody who attended my buyer boot camp last weekend, last Saturday. It was a really good class, and if you missed it and you want your copy, this also goes for the seller strategy session that I did a couple weeks ago. If you want your copy of Buyer Bootcamp or Seller Strategy Session, just reach out to me, let me know. Make sure you include your email address, and I will send the links over to you so you can go ahead and watch them. And yeah, just make sure to reach out to request it. It's not something you can find online. You have to get the link. So let me know if you want it. All right. And what happened this week? I'll go ahead and stop my share here. So last weekend was kind of insane. I mean, I had my buyer boot camp on Saturday, but then Sunday I had 3 different showings kind of all over King and Pierce County. And the first house that we went to, that I went to, met my clients at, was down in Ording. And we'd scheduled this showing a couple days prior, and I'd left a message for the listing agent, and the listing agent didn't get back to me until I was getting ready to write up the offer. So I'm talking to my clients, I'm texting with this listing agent, and she goes, "Oh, the seller's already accepted an offer." So that was a little bit of a bummer because my clients were going to put in an offer, but they already had 14 offers. So the sellers decided to review 24 hours early and accept an offer. So that was a big bummer for my clients, but I'm sure somebody was happy. And after that, I went into Renton. This was a property for my investor, one of my investor clients. And I called the listing agent, and she called me back when I was on my way over, saying that she had had over 80 showings over the course of the weekend. So my clients weren't in love with the house, so they decided to pass on it, mainly because it was so insanely busy. So they know that they're like, yeah, we're not going to want to offer what somebody else will offer. So we're not even going to try. It's be a waste of time. So I thought it was really interesting how many showings they had scheduled. And then when we showed up for our showing, there was another buyer that was performing a home inspection. So that was a little awkward because we're supposed to have the property to ourselves, but made sure to count everybody, make sure we were meeting the COVID requirements of 10 people or less, and we were good to go. So we just went through, tried to keep our distance from the other people that were at the inspection. But it was just nuts. The last home I showed that day was at a higher price point. So over, $1 million, things are running a little bit slower than they are at the lower price point. So it wasn't that crazy fury at the last house that we went to, but man, over 80 showings for one house in a single weekend. That's bonkers. So there are a lot of buyers out there, not very many houses. So all of them are going to the same few houses. And there ends up being 80 parties there throughout the weekend. So I'll go ahead and jump back into my slides. There we go. And so a couple days ago, on March 31st, Governor Inslee announced the vaccine for COVID-19 will be available to all adults 16 and up starting April 15th. This was somewhat a response to a recent uptick in COVID cases. So Inslee said, we got to do everything possible to ensure that we can keep cases down and basically get as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible. And of course, masks, hygiene, social distancing, all of these still play a role, but yes, looking forward to that vaccine and having a little more social freedom in the future. So for our news for real estate in the Seattle area, we had Seattle area home prices rising fastest in the nation, second only to Phoenix. This has been the same for about 12 months in a row. Phoenix is number one, and Seattle area has been number two for home price growth. This is, it's surprising to see it continuing so intensely for so long compared to the rest of the nation, but I guess that just speaks to what a wonderful place this is to live. But it's not equally distributed. The least expensive homes in our market have been rising at a greater rate than the most expensive homes. So the least expensive third of homes raised about 17% over year in January, whereas the top third only rose about 13%. So it's not distributed equally across the price points, but they are all headed in the same direction. And you can see this is the national average, the blue one, compared to the orange Seattle area line. And we've had 57.1% price change since January 2016. Nationally, that's closer to about 35%. So quite outpacing the nation as a whole. And Pierce County did see the most dramatic price hike. And in Parkland, it was up 19.2%. And 17.5% in Tacoma, 16.9% in Spanaway. So if you remember last year, we had an article about how Spanaway was the hardest place in the nation to secure a home. There was the most people looking, the highest price increase. They looked at all these different metrics, and Spanaway was number one in the nation. So that is a little bit surprising, but that whole area, that North Pierce area, is just exploding. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, what development happens in that area over the next few years. And basically, this is happening all across the country, and interest rates are rising. There's very little inventory, so it is driving prices up and making homes gradually become more unaffordable again. So this may potentially make some home shoppers drop out of the market. But really, the biggest concern remains the lack of homes that are available for purchase. A lot of sellers are holding out to sell because they believe they won't have a place to move to. So their house doesn't become available for somebody else. And it's kind of a vicious cycle. But if you are a seller, just a side point, if you are a seller that has these concerns, make sure to reach out to me for my home seller class, the home seller strategy session, because I do talk about a number of ways to make the move in as smooth a way as possible without becoming homeless. And rents are ticking back up after our pandemic plunge. Rent last year, the Seattle area, people were moving out to the suburbs like crazy, getting out of their condos, going to houses. And a lot of the neighborhoods in the Seattle metro area, like, totally suffered. So but now rents are beginning to tick back up. And for the Seattle rents, new leases, they're about 2.2% higher between February and March. So this is definitely seeing a recovery here for the rental market. And here again, it is split between the high-priced apartments and the low-priced apartments. The high-priced apartments have seen the biggest price drop, and the lower-priced apartments have remained much steadier than those luxury units. And Seattle, I thought this was a very interesting statistic. Seattle ranks third among major cities for the year-over-year drop in rents, and number six for month-over-month growth. And so basically we had the highest drop, but we're having one of the quickest recoveries in the nation as far as these major cities. And excuse me, the rents are going up for the, as I said, for the most expensive units. But in the suburbs, the commuter areas to Seattle, that is seeing that's grown in demand. Those outlying areas here, they mentioned Auburn and Everett, but I know Federal Way, Kent, Renton, they've all had their rent prices go up over the past year. So that is quite a stark difference from downtown Seattle. Oh, and almost forgot to read this last one. The pandemic era rent decline sharply contrasts with the prior years. Across the Seattle area, the median monthly rent increased 64% from 2010 to 2019. So we had this giant spike in rent over the course of 9 years, and now we've had a slight drop, but we're bouncing right back. And that brings us to our market stat minute. So you can see for new listings for the past 7 days in King County, we had 765 new listings, 1,089 pending, and 852 sold. So you can see the new listings have taken a drop. This is a little discouraging to see because we'd like to see that additional inventory. But a lot of the sellers, as the last article mentioned, are not putting their homes on the market because they don't think that they will have a place to go to, which causes a even greater lack of inventory. And that cycle is just going. And then with the rising interest rates, buyer demand is dropping off just ever so slightly. So it'll be interesting to see if we can get some more listings here so that we can get a lot of these buyers into homes before the interest rates raise up and push them out of the market. So our showing traffic nationwide is also down slightly from the last week. And again, this is just mainly a lack of supply. If there's nothing to look at that's meeting your qualifications, you're not going to go look at stuff. So, so last week we talked about mortgage rates jumping to 3.17, highest since June. This week it remained pretty steady. And put us at 3.18 for the weekly average. But if we take a look, this is from today at about 2:12 p.m. Interest rates had popped up to 3.39 and remained even since yesterday. So they have been fluctuating throughout the week, and the weekly average came in lower than what interest rates were listed at yesterday and today. And in the Seattle Times, they had this mortgage rate hits 9-month high after rising for 6 weeks in a row. And I must admit, it is very frustrating to try and figure out exactly what's going on with mortgage rates, because the Seattle Times number here of 3.18 from Freddie Mac. This is a survey of a bunch of people where they get the survey on Monday. They have till Wednesday to turn it in, but most of them turn it in on Monday, and the report comes out Thursday. So it's all lagging data. Whereas this is a snapshot of that day at that time, and this comes out every day. But this article, it's just crazy to see rates remain steady and have even come down a little point, according to Seattle Times. But then Seattle Times, a couple days prior, issues this 9-month high interest rates. So it's funny, and you don't know necessarily when the data was captured for the article. But with more Americans receiving stimulus and the vaccine and the economic recovery that is in motion, that is, the better our economy is doing, the higher interest rates are going to be. That's just generally how it is, because people can afford a higher interest rate if, as a society, we're doing well financially. So, but bankrate.com puts out this weekly mortgage rate trend index, and they found that experts that it surveyed were nearly evenly split on the rates where we're headed in this coming week. A third said they would go up, a third said they would go down, and a third said they would remain about the same. So even the experts are disagreeing about what is to come in the future. And I threw this one in lastly, I thought the title of this was pretty funny. Who's lying about the housing market? Because, like I said, I've gotten so many conflicting pieces of information, but some are from January and some are from March, and just trying to figure out when the data came out. It has been a real challenge in comparing a lot of these articles together. But the housing market is heating and cooling at the same time, and that is true in a number of ways. So according to Home Price Appreciation, the market is on fire, but things are moving in the other direction for home sales, down 10% on pending home sales since last month. So if we look at those charts, here we have annual home price, annual home prices as a percentage of change. So you can see they're just rocketing up in our current timeline. And pending home sales is actually dropping during our timeline. So what is going on? And this is all due to our lack of inventory. So you can see on the chart here, this is existing home inventory from a little before 1990. And we had all of this inventory leading into that economic recession, the housing crash in 2008. And now we are at the exact opposite point of where we could be from where we were heading into 2008. There's pretty much no homes available. Demand is skyrocketed through the roof, but there's no homes for anyone to buy. So prices have been rising, and it really depends on what your personal situation is as to how challenging, I guess, the housing market is for you right now. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. My phone number and email address are on the screen there, as well as in the description below. I've also linked all of the articles that I referenced in the description below, as well as my social media handles on different channels. So make sure to like and subscribe. If you like this video, please share it with a friend or family member that you think it might find it valuable. I really do love doing these shows. I'd love to hear your feedback. So if there's anything you'd like to see on the show, see mentioned on the show, please feel free to reach out. Again, if you want that buyer boot camp or home seller strategy session video, just shoot me a message, Facebook, Insta, email, text, call, and let me know what your email address is and I will get it over to you. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, my name is Sarah Eggleston, and I am with the Stone Egg Realty team at John L. Scott. And this has been your South King County Real Estate Update. Oh, and before I forget, side note, next week's show will be at 4 p.m. I had a scheduling conflict, so I have to do it at 4 p.m. instead of 3 p.m. But I will be back here next Friday to deliver your local real estate and mortgage news. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week. Have a great one.